That's what's necessary to move this country forward from where we are today, which has become quite a weak position economically.
I have to fix this problem that I've helped create. If you needed more proof that the election is only a few weeks away, the English version of the Liberal debate is all that you should need. What should have been an opportunity for the candidates to distinguish themselves from each other, well, it was just a 2-hour-long election campaign commercial for the Liberal Party of Canada. However, it started out with some comedy at least. The moderator completely forgot that Chrystia Freeland was even present.
Let's take a look.
We are a proud, sovereign country, and as Canadians, we have so much to offer, but also the Americans depend on us. And you can't bring a calculator to a knife fight. You have to fight very strongly and with the right tools, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as Prime Minister.
Ms. Gould, thank you kindly. We're going to move into our first 5-minute debate.
I think you forgot, Chrystia.
Oh my gosh.
That's no
First
problem.
mistake by the moderator. My apologies. Ms. Freeland, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
So this was their opening statements, folk. It's not like we're an hour in. It's not like we're 2 hours in and everyone's tired. This is the start. So they went through everyone's opening statements, and then I guess the moderator got bored from them all, or maybe she just, she thought that they all sounded, so similar that everybody had already gone. So she was just like, okay, let's go. And oh, I'm sorry, Chrystia.
But it wasn't only that. It was, whose intro was it during where somebody else's mic was on and you could hear like rustling and laughing?
Oh, it was Karina Gold's, I think.
It was bizarre.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. It was pretty strange. So whomever was running the sound for this, they had like their booth mic on, and you could hear them laughing. Like, it was pretty strange.
Or I wasn't even sure if it was that or if it was one of the candidates. I have no idea what happened because it was focused on Gold and all you could hear was a man laughing.
The sound of Canadians across the country laughing at the ridiculousness of the Liberal Party. So about 18 minutes in, they're still talking about Trump. Like the probably 75% of this debate was about President Trump.
It was ridiculous. There's very serious issues that are facing Canadians right now that our government has caused, and they're using it as some sort of campaign tactic against Poilievre and comparing him to Trump and saying all the bad things Trump is doing.
But Chrystia Freeland wanted to talk about a wave of patriotism in a post-national state. I thought we were a post-national state. How can you have a wave of nationalism and patriotism in a post-national state?
Well, when it's convenient, I guess.
Let me get Ms. Freeland in first, and then just 1 second, Ms. Freeland, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Gould.
About President Trump is with him, weakness is a provocation, and capitulation is not a negotiating strategy. The great thing is right now, Canadians get it. There is this wave of patriotism in Canada, and Canadians are going to stand and fight for Canada. They need a leader who knows how to lead that fight and rally that wave of patriotism. I'm the leader who can do that.
Ms. Gould.
I don't even know what to say about this. It's this fake patriotism that the left is doing because they think it's trendy.
Well,
it's offensive, to be honest.
And they think that because Canadians were cheering for the quote-unquote Canadian hockey team in the Four Nations fake hockey tournament in the NHL, it was the substitute for the All-Star game is what it was, that Canadians have rallied together behind the Liberal Party? Is this really what you want everybody to believe? Like,
we do need more patriotism and we do need more national unity. If you've seen our interview with David Redman, that was one of the main pillars that he talks about. And the Liberals had completely destroyed that the last 9 years. And now all of a sudden, when it's convenient for them, they're trying to bring it back.
Yeah, the last wave of patriotism we saw was in 2022 when the Freedom Convoy got together.
And the Liberals tried to squash that.
Right. National unity is only good if it serves the Liberals' purpose. And right now, they are doing their darndest to scare the bejesus out of everybody into thinking that Donald Trump is like the second coming of Hitler. This is what they're doing. And it's this tool of the Liberal Party that they're using right now to try to essentially say that, oh, you know, Trump is a bad guy. He's coming to take your house. He's coming to take our country. And Pierre Poilievre is just like him. So you have to rally behind us, everybody.
Yeah, this whole debate was just one big commercial for the Liberal Party of Canada. And what upsets me is that in an election debate, the other party is there to defend themselves. And because this is a Liberal leadership debate, the Conservatives weren't there and they weren't able to fight back against these allegations. It was just like one big giant commercial for the LPC.
It was a disgrace, pretty much is what it is.
That's a good word, disgrace.
So this brings us to perhaps one of the most reprehensible parts of the debate. And this is where, again, Chrystia Freeland is talking about, you know, the how to respond to Trump question that the Liberal Party threw out. And she's essentially saying, well, you know, we can't rely on the U.S. to defend us anymore. This is the whole problem in the first place, that you've put Canada in a position where we've had to rely on the U.S. to defend us. And she suggests that we go to other countries to rely on them to defend us instead.
It's a great question, because what is different about this unleashed and empowered President Trump is he is clearly threatening our sovereignty, and we need to respond. For the first time, the U.S., rather than guaranteeing, for the first time since the Second World War, rather than guaranteeing the rules-based order, the U.S. is turning predator. And so what Canada needs to do is work closely with our democratic allies, our military allies. I've been foreign minister. I know how to do that. That's why I would start with our Nordic partners, specifically Denmark, which is also being threatened, and our European NATO allies. I would be sure that France and Britain were there, who possess nuclear weapons. And I would be working urgently with those partners to build a closer security relationship that guarantees our security in a time when the United States can be a threat. And I would also, crucially, reach out to our Asian democratic partners, Japan, South Korea, Australia. They need to be part of the conversation too. We need to be ready for a world where the U.S. is not the leader of the free world anymore. Canada can be and must be a leader in building this new order. Our allies are looking to us. And if we do this, we'll make ourselves safer as well.
Mr. Bayless.
Talk about somebody with zero awareness of geopolitical issues going on right now. And she embarrasses herself by saying, well, you know, I used to be the foreign minister. You're talking about South Korea. You're talking about Japan. Hello? Do you know what's going on in Asia right now? Everyone in Asia is looking at China, wondering what the hell they're going to do next. Everyone is waiting for China to invade Taiwan. Everyone's waiting for China to start branching out at the other nations in there. Everyone's waiting for China to aid North Korea in taking over South Korea. There's a lot of crap that's going on in Asia. And then you have Japan with Russia right there and China down there. And never mind the fact that she's like, oh, let's talk to the Brits. They have nuclear weapons. They will guarantee our safety. It's embarrassing listening to this.
Yeah, but this is how the Liberal government works. They don't want to empower themselves as a government or as a country. They don't want to empower their citizens to take care of themselves. They want somebody else to do it, right? That's their whole MO is we don't want to give Canadians the ability to take care of themselves and earn their own paychecks and be able to buy a house. No, we want to help them, which was a core theme of this debate, I think. It wasn't that we're going to improve Canada's economy. We're going to fix things so that Canadians can be self-sufficient. No, we're going to fix things so that we can help them.
Right. Because that's what Liberals think government exists to do, is to essentially run your lives and make you dependent on the government. We'll get into that a little bit later with one of Karina's policies, and I'm sure you're all aware of at this point. But yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. But this is just embarrassing, the fact that they have completely destroyed our military, and they're like, well, you know, I guess we might as well go rob other people's militaries now because we've given all of our money and ammunition away.
Better cozy up to Britain.
Like, this is a disgrace for any Canadian that takes pride in veterans and pride in military. This answer alone, like, you should be running for the washroom.
Yeah.
And we mentioned fear mongering, so Chrystia Freeland does a good job on her own, but Mark Carney isn't to be outdone here.
It's in Amherst, Nova Scotia, and I was asked a question by some British journalists about whether the UK and Europe could avoid the impact of President Trump. And I said, good luck with that. Now they're beginning to see the impact. We've seen it through Ukraine and elsewhere. So there is an opportunity, in fact, a necessity, an imperative here for us to work with like-minded countries on the new security architecture. Yes, we have to step up for our contribution. How we protect our Arctic, which is under threat not just now from the Russians and the Chinese, but from potential U.S. incursions.
Okay, Mark Carney. I would like to know what evidence you have that the United States military is going to make an incursion into our country.
Because Trump was trolling and said that they were going to annex Canada as the 51st state.
Like, this is just blatant fear-mongering. They're taking a troll from the president and they're trying to convince everybody that this is absolutely serious and it's an existential threat to our existence, and therefore you need to be following the Liberals because we're the best suited to handle this. This is disgusting politics at its finest, folks. And these are the people that are saying, well, you know, we're the party that unites people. We're not the party that divides people. No, you're just the party that screws up this entire country, doesn't talk about it on a national leadership debate.
Yeah, that's a good point because, I mean, one of the questions I would have expected was that this government has been marred by controversy and scandals even from its early days back in 2015, 2016. So what are you going to do to make sure that that doesn't happen with a new Liberal government?
Yeah, there was no question like that whatsoever.
Nothing. Absolutely not, because we can't call attention to the disgraceful things that the Liberal Party has done.
No, they actually repeatedly throughout this debate, they're just like, you know, I'm really proud of everything that we've done. Like,
it was shameful.
You're proud of everything you've done. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, who needs the question over what are you going to do differently when it comes to scandals? Because you're proud of everything. So therefore, you don't consider those scandals then, I guess. You don't consider $400 million missing a scandal.
I mean, even the Arrive Cam was a scandal because it was so bad that not only did the RCMP execute a search warrant on the home/office of Christian Firth, he was also brought to the bar of the House, which is a very serious thing. You can go back in our video history and watch it, but like these are very serious scandals that this government was embroiled in.
Right. And in some cases, billions of dollars of taxpayer money. And they're just like, whatever, who cares? Nothing to see here. Unreal. Now, this is where it gets interesting because Mark Carney, there's a piece of irony here. Mark Carney needs to convince Canadians that he's needed. And in order to convince Canadians he's needed, he needs to be able to find a reason for why he's needed. So he's the economist. So what's the reason an economist would be needed? Well, evidently the economy would need help in order to need an economist. So he actually ends up calling the economy weak, which is funny because right after that, Karina Gould and Chrystia Freeland are like, well, I don't think we should talk down Canada. You mean you don't think you should talk down?
It's because they had a direct hand in making Canada's economy weak, especially Freeland as the former finance minister.
But the irony is, so did Mark Carney. Anyway, let's get to the clip.
As Prime Minister, what would your priority be to strengthen our economy?
Well, I think I'll start my answer by saying this will be one of my top priorities jointly with these issues that we just touched on, largely with the U.S. and the threats to our security. A focus on building our economy on several layers. First and foremost, this is a time to build. We have an enormous opportunity to build our economy. That means building millions of homes. We're millions of homes short in this country. Everyone who's trying to buy a home is aware of that, particularly young. It's building infrastructure, both conventional energy infrastructure and clean energy infrastructure. It's building up on the conversation we just had, on intelligence infrastructure. It is diversifying our trade partners with new trading routes, and it's creating one Canadian economy instead of 13. That's what's necessary to move this country forward from where we are today, which has become quite a weak position economically.
So the economic advisor that has been advising this government since 2020 has had his position formalized last fall, is now saying, well, this is a weak economy.
I have to fix this problem that I've helped create.
It's going to be my top priority. Oh, okay.
And it hasn't been the last 5 years.
But this is the same guy will say, well, all of the good things that have worked, those were my ideas. And all of the things that haven't worked, well, that was the Trudeau government not listening to my ideas. This sounds exactly like the Liberal government.
Yeah, he's a perfect fit, really.
Like when inflation was going up, that wasn't the Liberal government. That was everybody else's fault. That was a global problem. But when all the interest rates were coming down, oh, well, that was our economic and fiscal policy, everybody. Like they seriously expect people to buy this crap.
Well, the sad part is that people do.
Some people do.
But that's why we're here.
Now, Karina Gould has gone full radical leftist at this point because she has an idea to create a new safety net for Canadians. And she mentions the last two of the forbidden acronym. And she says, basic income. Let's take a look.
Thank you, Hannah. When my colleagues talk about households, I talk about families. When they talk about, the macro picture, I talk about what it means for individuals. And I'm so proud that I was able to deliver affordable childcare for families across this country. And I would expand that to include before and after school care as well. But when we're talking about people who are going to food banks, we're talking about the most vulnerable in our society. A middle-class tax cut or removing the GST on new homes isn't going to help those folks. But you know what will? Modernizing our social safety net, making sure that seniors who live on a fixed income, persons with disabilities, folks who have lost their job, who need support to retrain and rebound are better off. And that's why I'm talking about opening a path towards a basic income.
No, thank you.
But don't you want the government to take care of you for the rest of your life and give you money?
I also don't want the government to be giving out, quote unquote, free money to everybody so that we end up in the position that we were in the pandemic when we had the CERB debacle.
Except way, way worse, because this would be permanent.
It would be permanent. And where's all this money going to come from, Karina?
If there's no taxpayers, it's not coming from the taxpayers. So what? They're just going to annihilate our economy?
Well, we have a AAA credit rating, don't you know? Thanks, Freeland. This is the problem. We've gone down the experiment of a universal basic income, and the experiment was an overwhelming failure to the point where they saw, oh, nobody wants to work, so I guess we need to bring in a bunch of temporary workers. Oh, look what happened then. We completely destroyed our housing market. Oh, and then look what happened. We completely destroyed our education system. We completely destroyed our healthcare sector. We've destroyed everything. But you know what? Don't say that Canada's broken. That's talking down Canada, and we don't do that. We don't like to acknowledge problems that we create as the Liberal government. We just like to create new ones and then make you afraid of things to make you forget all of the things that we broke.
I tell you, it's the Conservatives' fault.
It's the Conservatives' fault.
Look, I'm not going to talk down Canada. I am only ever going to be a champion for this country. And when it comes to the question that was asked about poverty, we actually have to talk about people in poverty and what their lived experience is. When I was the Minister of Families, I worked on a national school food program that is now going to be supporting thousands of kids across this country and delivered childcare. But let's be clear, poverty costs us money, and investing to tackle and end poverty, like things like the Canada Child Benefit or increasing senior supports, is going to benefit all of us.
Okay, and 30 seconds to you, Ms. Freeland, and then we'll move on.
I just want to say really quickly that we need to be really careful not to repeat conservative talking points. Canada most definitely is not broken.
So this is after Mark Carney was saying that the economy was weak. So, like, apparently that's called a conservative talking point. This is the thing.
Well, if you look at any successful individual, they are capable of self-reflection. They can look back on what they've done and say, you know what, maybe that wasn't a good idea. Maybe I can improve here, here, and here. And that's how personal growth is achieved. And that's how people become successful. I don't think it's any different for companies or even governments, that they can look back on what they've done and go, you know what, that was a bad idea. That caused a lot of problems. Here's how we can improve things going forward. And the Liberals are standing here saying, I'm not going to talk down Canada. You're not talking it down. You're just saying, this was an issue. Now I know how to improve things going forward.
Well, and this is the thing. Like, I've been a leader throughout my career, and I've made some mistakes. One of the important things that I learned is as soon as you realize you make a mistake, you acknowledge it, you own it, and then you fix it. That's what you do. And then maybe you don't fix it on the first attempt. Maybe it takes the second attempt or the third. The point is that everybody around you sees that you're trying to rectify the situation and see it through. And that way you don't say, well, you know, it was Jim's fault, it was Bob's fault, it was Pierre's fault. No, doesn't matter whose fault it is. I own it, and I'm going to take the responsibility of fixing it. That's what a leader does. But Trudeau's Liberals, apparently any of these Liberals, they don't own up to mistakes. They will shame you for bringing it up because that's talking down Canada. No. That's calling out your bad policies, your mistakes, and it is not unpatriotic, contrary to the CBC and the Liberals, to say that Canada has problems. Canada is broken. What is unpatriotic is to say Canada's broken and I'm not going to take any part in fixing it. That's unpatriotic. Or to say, you know what, screw this country, I'm leaving because it's too broken for me.
Maybe that's what Carney will do after all this is over.
Yeah, maybe he'll go and be the governor of the Bank of Australia or something. I don't know. You know, keep going with those Commonwealth countries, Carney.
I was there in 2015. I had been a backbench MP for 2 years, and I remember how electric that campaign was. And the reason we won at the heart of it was we recognized the pain that middle-class Canadians, including young Canadians, were feeling. And we recognized and identified that Stephen Harper led a lackluster recovery from the 2008 financial crisis.
Wait a minute. I thought it was Mark Carney that led Canada out of the 2008 financial crisis with raging success.
No, you don't get it. It was Harper that was lackluster, and it was Carney that was amazing.
Oh,
Right?
I
Right?
see.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the liberal mental gymnastics that they want us to play.
Right? Liberal logic.
Like, it was because of Carney that we did really well, but on the off chance that we didn't do really well, that was Harper's fault.
So which is it?
Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? Exactly. Which is it, Freeland? Is the godfather of your kid an idiot?
Yes.
Or is he a lying idiot? Or
Well, and this is the problem, and this is what I hated through not only the English debate but the French one the day before as well, is that it wasn't like none of them were trying to say, well, I'm better than so and so because of such and such. It was blasé.
but they're so stupid. Like, this is the thing, they're so dumb that they don't even realize when they are talking each other down.
Well, and they don't know what each other's platforms are, what they're running on as leader. So they can't say, well, my plan for the economy is better than Freeland's because of blah, 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 blah. It was just, and this is what I mean when I say that Trudeau did not have an obvious successor and that he surrounded himself with a weak cabinet. Two of the people standing up there were cabinet ministers. And the other two, well, one was an economist who was supporting the Liberals behind the scenes, and the other was a backbench MP from 2015. So they've all worked with Trudeau at some point, and he purposefully surrounded himself with weak-minded individuals so that he was the only obvious choice as prime minister.
Well, and that's the thing. None of these people are strong personalities. None of these people are strong leaders. They're a bunch of weak people. Like,
They're not leadership material.
like every single one of them would blow over in a storm.
And one of them is going to be the next prime minister, even if it's for a very short time, which, from what we've heard, it's going to be an extremely short time.
About a week, folks. About a week. We've heard that an election is being called essentially 1 week after the leadership race is concluded.
Sometime within that week of March 10th.
Yes, I support ending the consumer carbon tax, and to be absolutely clear, that's on consumers, it'd be on small businesses, it'd be on farms as well. The reason I do is twofold. One, politics is about people, and this has become too divisive for Canadians. Okay. Secondly, the contribution of the consumer carbon tax is a little less than 10% of our emissions reductions. I've spent a substantial portion of my career working on these issues, and there are better ways to accomplish those emissions reductions, particularly on my proposal, is that big polluters will pay Canadians, not taxpayers, big polluters will pay Canadians for their emission reductions and will improve the options for and the ability of those companies, who are some of our most important companies, to get their own emissions down.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to gaslight you and tell you that there are much better ways of reducing emissions than a carbon tax, despite the fact that one of my whole books' sole premise was the fact that any climate economy that is serious has to have a carbon tax. And I have said many times in the past that I don't think that the carbon tax went far enough, but I think there are better options than actually implementing a carbon tax. So what am I going to do? I'm going to raise the carbon tax that's on the industrial side.
Right, and we did a video on this last week. I mean, having any kind of carbon tax, even if it's not a consumer carbon tax, will trickle down to the consumer.
Yeah, it doesn't change anything.
No.
And one of the things that he's talked about is a carbon tax tariff. He's going to put tariffs on countries that don't have a climate plan according to the liberal standards.
You know, like the United States and China, where we get a lot of our goods.
So you're going to be paying a lot more for stuff because he's going to be putting these tariffs on there. And then what's going to happen? Those countries are going to put tariffs on our stuff coming in. So, like, this is the double talk that this guy is actually saying. He's like, yeah, I'm going to get rid of the consumer carbon tax over here. Just don't pay attention over here when I'm raising the other carbon taxes on every other thing. And remember the video that we did recently about Pierre Poilievre questioning Mark Carney at committee about pipelines and how Mark Carney supported the termination of the Northern Gateway pipeline that Trudeau vetoed a few years ago.
I think that was actually the same video I was talking about. I think it was all together.
And, well, now they're asking Carney, what do you think about pipelines now?
I'll go back to where we started. We're in a crisis. We need to act. We need to act to build this economy. And part of those actions is, or should be, around our energy sector. I would convene, as part of First Minister's, discussion of the projects of national interest, which would include both clean and conventional energy, would include pipelines, getting consensus around those projects that we're going to move forward on. Because we are a federation, we need multiple levels of government, but we need speed. And we need the federal government to move with speed.
So now he wants us to believe that he's in favor of pipelines.
Didn't he go on a French language broadcast and say that he wasn't going to put a pipeline through Quebec?
Well, he said that he was going to allow them to veto it. That's what he said.
Even though the vast majority of Quebecers do want a pipeline.
And the vast majority of Canada needs a pipeline. Needs multiple pipelines. We need lines out west, we need lines out east, and we need lines out up north. We need 3 different exit points from Canada in order to move our oil out. At least. So you have to have pipelines. So, like, this is Mr. Climate, and I think he's just saying what some Canadians want to hear just to get him elected. And then after that, if you've read any of Mark Carney's books, even if you've read the synopsis of some of his books, you know who this guy is.
He's Trudeau 2.0. He's a little bit smarter and not quite as charismatic, but I think he's going to do even more damage.
Now, the last question of this quote-unquote debate was actually, it could have been a good question. And it was, how are you going to distinguish yourself against Justin Trudeau? And nobody wanted to trash him. Nobody wanted to speak against him. Karina Gold and Chrystia Freeland actually came out and said, I feel really proud about, everything that our government has done. And Karina Gold says, yeah, we made some mistakes. Mistakes?
You guys have destroyed everything that was good in this country, and you call it a mistake?
And they say, but don't worry. We'll fix it this time.
How about you step aside and let the Conservatives fix it? Because things were good under the Conservatives last time, and I'm going to bet that they'll be good again.
But this is the thing. Like, this last question, it was a joke, folks. It was an absolute joke. And I'm not even going to show you a clip because it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch the whole thing.
It was hard to watch the whole thing, but we did it.
But that last question, like, it's a joke. Mark Carney says, well, I'm going to focus on the economy. Bayless says, well, I'm going to focus on the economy. Kearney Gold says, I'm going to listen to Canadians.
Sure you are.
And Freeland, and I'm not joking, Freeland says, I feel liberated.
This whole debate, and even the French language one, I don't know. What are your final thoughts?
I think it's obvious why they prorogued Parliament. I think this was literally a setup to begin the Liberal campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
And this was essentially their last hurrah to go into it.
I'm going to say that I think Frank Bayless did the best in both debates. Not only was he the one who could speak the best French in the French language debate, I think he also gave the best answers in the English debate as well. So, you know, maybe he's a backbencher from the first term of the Trudeau government, but, you know, I think he held his own in this debate, if you can call it a debate.
I think he, let's just say, distinguished himself the most. And even that, it wasn't very much. But so, like, when you're competing against trash, I guess it's not hard to look like the least amount of trash. But that's what ended up happening. And in every answer, His Majesty King Carney looked like he was annoyed that he was even there. Like, he wasn't smiling. He was just, all right, well, here's my frickin' answer. Like, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the election with the party leader debates, to see if he still has that same, what kind of attitude would you call that? Like
global elitist?
Yeah, that's a good term for it.
Well, if you ask Carney, we need globalists and we need elitists. Apparently, the Canadian public, we need Mark Carney. That's what he thinks. So, you know.
I think we need a government that's going to fix the problems that this Trudeau government created and get things back to a place where Canadians can be self-sufficient and proud of this country again.